Welcome to the Count Me In podcast. My name is Tumbeko Wamblawai, or you can call me Stu Relatable, your internet auntie. The Count Me In podcast is a 3-part series that dives into the incredible work that women and young girls have in shaping Zambian society. On this episode, we're discussing a topic that is always relevant: marriage. We'll uncover how tradition influences the way we view things and how our cultural practices hold up in the modern world. So join us as we break in the old and the new and bring this topic to life. So are you ready? I definitely am. As usual, I am not alone. I am joined by an incredible panel today, and I'm so excited for everyone to discuss this topic. But first, let me tell you a little story. In the year of our Lord 2024, I, female, turned 36 years old, and the pressure was bad because I realized I've been on this world for 36 years and still I have not been able to get betrothed. I have not found myself a husband, a man. I have nothing like that. And the pressure has been building for a long time. And I've been thinking, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? But there's so many things that have been running through my mind as a woman. And I just thought that this conversation today is going to really help us explore some of those challenges. So let's get into it. And I just want our amazing panel. I'm starting this side. I want our amazing panel to introduce themselves.
Okay. My name is Mulenga Kapwepwe. For this, I guess I'm an author. Yeah. That's it. I'm not, anti anybody.
You're not anti anybody on the internet. But Mulenga Kapwepwe, even though you say that, you have been like the one auntie we have looked up to. We, the new aunties, you are like Auntie Grand Maestro. So even though you say you're not the auntie, you have no idea.
My nieces call me Auntie Google.
Auntie Google.
Yeah,
yes, Auntie Google.
The Google auntie.
Auntie G.
If they want an answer, they Google me.
Exactly. You're like a walking Wikipedia. So I'm just excited that you're here, and thank you for making the time because I have a lot of things to ask you.
Thank you.
And then we can go this side.
Yeah. Best. I thought I'll be the first person to be, because I'm the only male here.
Yeah.
But clearly, we can't.
You can't compete.
No, I can't. So my name is Tapiwa. Mm-hmm. I am a media personality. I'm a TV producer here in Lusaka. And today, I am the splash of testosterone on the panel.
We always need a little bit of testosterone, and I mean a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, among other things, I love conversations around culture. I love conversations around how we could preserve it, and we'll dive into more of that later on. So I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you for being here, Tapiwa. Should I call you Taps? No?
Taps is fine.
Okay, since we're friends now. Yes, Miss
I feel like after that introduction, I feel like pressure, but yeah.
You will rise to the occasion, girl. Come on.
So my name is Naomi Banda. I'm a youth advisory panelist for Plan International.
Wow.
And then I'm also a youth and gender equality activist. So I think I'm so glad to be part of this conversation. So I think representing young people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you Gen Z?
Yeah.
We need to hear your voices because you guys, one thing about Gen Z, you can talk.
Very much.
You are the team. I know my rights. So I just want to make sure that this energy, you're bringing to this conversation. But before we get into that conversation, what I want to do is just give you a run through of how the podcast is going to go. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually view a documentary that was filmed so that we can see some impactful women and what's happening. And from there, we're going to have a very in-depth discussion about the topic at hand. And from there, we're going to take it back to the streets, the street culture, the peoples, and hear what they have to say about this topic. And from there, I'm going to bring it in and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to put a beautiful bow on it, and then it's going to be over. So are we ready for that?
Yeah, sure.
Woo-hoo. So let's just get into it and check out this documentary. So we are going to be back very soon. Zambia is a nation rich in history and cultural diversity. Here, tradition meets modernity every day, creating a unique blend of the old and the new. But as the generations pass, a question emerges. How do we preserve our culture while embracing a rapidly changing world? Each generation views tradition and modernity through a different lens. The older generations see tradition as a source of identity, while the younger generations often see it as a choice, one of many in a world full of options. One of the most visible areas where tradition and modernity collide is marriage. In Zambia, marriage has always been a community affair, with deeply rooted rituals symbolizing unity and respect. But today, more young people are rethinking these rights, searching for a balance between honoring their heritage and embracing personal freedom. To understand where we are today, we must look back at the generations that came before us. Each generation has been shaped by the world around them, influenced by their unique challenges and opportunities. Meet the lost generation. This refers to those born between 1883 and 1900. A generation in Zambia deeply rooted in traditional culture and practices. Their lives governed by the rituals and social norms of their communities. They laid the foundation of many cultural practices, especially when it comes to marriage, where elders arranged unions to strengthen community bonds. Baby boomers are those born between 1946 and 1964. As Zambia gained independence in 1964, this generation grew up with the promise of a new era. They witnessed significant political changes and a rise in education, but they also remained connected to traditional practices. Many baby boomers followed arranged marriage practices, but they started to see shifts towards romantic partnerships. Then came Gen X, who are the generation born between 1965 and 1980. They began to experience the early influences of Western culture through TV, radio, and increased urbanization. They valued stability, but were also the first to question traditional practices. Gen X saw the beginning of a shift from arranged marriages to self-chosen partners, though marriage rights remained mostly traditional. Millennials are the first truly globalized generation born between 1981 and 1996. They had access to the internet, music, and movies from across the world. As a result, they have straddled two worlds, one rooted in Zambian culture and another shaped by global trends. Many millennials still respect traditional marriage rights, but there's a growing tendency to reinterpret them. Marriage often blends both cultural and modern practices. Born into the digital era between 1997 and 2012, Gen Z have grown up with social media, instant information, and rapid globalization. They are more connected to the world than any previous generation, yet they face a unique challenge: how to connect with a cultural heritage that feels distant. For many Gen Z, marriage rights are increasingly seen as options rather than obligations. They value personal choice and often prefer more simplified ceremonies or partnerships that align with modern ideals of equality and individualism. In her latest book, Perfect Marriage, author, cultural, and social activist Mulenga Kapwepwe explores the interplay of tradition and modernity with the rise of cosmopolitanism. Her book highlights some of the tensions that can arise as couples strive to create the perfect balance as they embrace their various cultures.
Thank you for having me. My name's Charity Zindaba Fides Piri Zulu. I belong to the group of Alangizi, Penza group to be specific in Baulen. Traditional teaching is important for people that are preparing for marriage because it gives a good guidance and it gives a strong foundation for their marriage. Chikwati chiri chonse chifunika china mwambo. Muntu aliyense afunika lina mwambo. Kulibe muntu abwera chabe aenda chabe kuli muntu nokhala na malango. Bantu ngati baenda mu mwambo. Chikwati chawo chimankhala cholongosoka. Ni vintu vambiri vaneti mamawikira munja ma cultural values. Ma cultural values aya ni vintu vambiri vameneti zavapunzisa. Because one, tipanga muntu wamene azaenda kankhale tate azankhala husband wa muntu. Tipanga muntu wamene azankhala wife wa muntu. So uyu muntu azaenda kankhale bwanji ku bantu kuja kwamene aenda. So ni vintu vambiri vamene tichita chani vamene timapunzisa abantu kuti bapite bankhale na mwambo.
distinct differences in how generations conduct marriage ceremonies now lie with millennials and Gen Zs. Millennials still pay Lobola and often prefer smaller, more intimate traditional aspects of their culture, even as they incorporate modern elements like vows or the Western white wedding and receptions. Gen Zs, on the other hand, seem okay with alternative ceremonies like a simple civil union. As we look to the future, Zambia stands at a crossroads. Gen Z has the power to shape what it means to be Zambian in the 21st century. Will they find a way to bridge the gap between past and present, or will tradition be left behind as Zambia moves forward? In a world that's constantly evolving, the challenge for Zambia's younger generation is clear: to honor the roots that ground us while growing toward a future that reflects who we are becoming. At the heart of Zambia is a spirit of unity. No matter how we change, we are bound together by a shared history. And so the journey continues, for each generation to rediscover what it means to be Zambian and to bridge the gap by passing that knowledge on. So for us to start the discussion, the first thing I want to do is ask Ms. Kapwepwe. Tradition and modernity. You are so passionate about the topic that you decided to write a whole book about it. I just want you to just tell us about the book and some of the main themes and why you thought it was a very important conversation for you to actually jot it down on paper.
On many pieces of paper.
Many pieces.
Well, I think what was important for me, there were a number of things. For the purpose of this discussion, I think the tradition and modernity stuff. But what was important for me was also to, one, the whole book is about marriage in the traditional way, which is why I make a young couple go through a traditional marriage, because I think nowadays nobody does that.
Yeah.
And that was just a reminder, like, this is what marriage looks like. But also I wanted to show through the characters, so the three main characters, the bride, the groom, and the groom's sister. The groom's sister is an artist, so I wanted to show the art of the mbusa, because it is art. Then I wanted to show the science behind mbusa, because there's a science, there's a whole neurobiology behind it. And thirdly, because we tend to think our traditions are just rubbish, there's no science behind them, so I wanted to show that. And then thirdly, I also wanted to show that the whole teaching, the teaching before marriage is teaching. It's a pedagogy. And therefore, we need to actually look at it, because I think it has a lesson. It has many lessons, I think, for how we can actually teach. There's ways of teaching in modern life. Teaching is mainly about giving information. But I think it was Gandhi who said the highest form of information is wisdom. And so how do you teach wisdom? And I think that's what comes out through the book. How do you teach wisdom? Not just, 10 times 10 is 100. But how do you teach someone to be considerate towards another human being?
So one thing that I like about the book, have you guys read it? So it's called The Perfect Marriage. Yes? Yes. And one thing that I like about the book is that you're dealing with a couple that's from the diaspora, right? And they have to go through this. And if you're from the diaspora, it means that you're from Kofialo, at the end of the day, you are not part of, this culture. So it's like you're coming back home, and then you've seen the skyscrapers of New York, you've been to Milan, you've walked the streets you've gone through the tunnels of Venice, and then you come back and they tell you like, hey, you have to go through this traditional marriage. And for me, that is something that I really found exciting about the book, because it's really giving us a top-tier modern couple. And they give it modernity. This is the modernity they talk about. So just getting into the discussion, what I want to find out from you two is that, have you ever felt the pressure of a tradition in any aspect of your personal lives, especially when it comes to relationships and marriage? And have you ever been tasked with thinking about, I'm going to get married one day, and this is what I might have to, they usually say, endure. So maybe I'll start with Naomi.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the pressure is there, and looking at maybe speaking from my own experience, growing up from the time puberty hits and everything, I feel there's that pressure because you have so many people around you who are telling you, oh, now you're a girl, now you're a grown, you're a lady now. And then there are certain things that you have to know, you know. So I feel the pressure is there, especially with marriage, because we see trending photos of
weddings.
They're going to make you carry something with your mouth and stuff. But it's like, okay, we are like, as young people, we always want to listen. We want to listen. We are ready to listen. So I feel like learning from people who've, like Mulenga, who've come before us, I think that would really help us.
I've come before you.
I feel that would help us lessen the pressure, because you know, like, okay, you know what's expected from you, you know. So I feel,
So as a Gen Z, because you're a Gen Z, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Matupin generation. So like, do you actually go through the pressure, especially like the traditional side? In like when I was growing up in the 90s, we got so many things because we ended up feeling like we're being prepared for marriage from a very early age. Do you as a Matusa feel like it's something that you go through, or you think that the pressure is less on you now that, you know, it's 2024?
I feel the pressure is less now, and I'll be frank, because when you're looking at marriage now, you're looking at the whole situation where you focus on your future partner. It's like, oh, okay, I want a situation where we understand each other in these ways and whatnot. But I think we failed to understand that there are also other things, because at the end of the day, you're not marrying your partner. You're also, there's a relationship between the partner, you and the partner's family.
To
like,
marry your best friend.
you know. It's like, it's just not two people coming together, but two families coming together, you know. So I feel like there's all that, but the pressure is less because we actually focus on the partner. So
as I was saying earlier, like, Tim, I know my rights, you know, at least you have the opportunity to voice out, because when I was growing up, like the event, one of the things that they wanted to do to me as a child is, in laws we say, like you have to enter the initiation house and you have to learn a few things, and then you come out to do this little dance for everybody, and then they'll say, oh, go out, you're a woman now. But then for me, I didn't want to do that. And then when I grew older, I found out that people actually also get money. They get money when they do it. And I was like, should have done it for the money. But like, you...
Capito.
Starter. But you, Tapiwa, as a man.
Yeah.
You know, as a man in the modern world, a young man for that matter, like, how does tradition and culture impact you? Because these days, you're not going out there to hunt with a spear. Everything is there for you. So how do you feel like culture is impacting you as a person, as a man?
First off, you don't know that. I'm just coming back from hunting. You can't tell. Just wearing some animal skin on me and the like. But anyways, it's interesting that Naomi says the pressure is less. And I might say something that would be maybe some women may not know, but the pressure is there for men as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are 10 years apart, actually. Not on the older side.
Hi, wait. You mean literally?
Literally, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
We're 10 years apart. So I just turned 26. And I think for the past 3 years or so, I've loved the idea of getting married young. And young for me was anywhere between, 27 to 30, below 30. Just the idea of that. The story as to why that is different. Story for another day. But oftentimes you'd find young men who are in relationships with young women. Young women tend to get that pressure, obviously. Sometimes it's not there, but they just feel it's there. And I know there's a whole conversation around biological clocks and the like. So it's a trickle-down effect. That pressure that Naomi will feel if we're in a relationship trickles down to me. Because now it's questions of what now?
What
You've
you
been
gonna
dating
do?
me for this long.
Are you trying to damn me? Is it a degree?
Exactly. For that long, yes. And I think the other problem that exists is, like Naomi has also mentioned, you have a situation where it's the whole marry your best friend thing. And one thing I've learned about the whole commitment, a lifetime commitment, you need to, first off, there's a whole tolerance thing to it. You need to be with someone that you can tolerate, I feel. That's how I view relationships and the like, because everyone is flawed. So you need to pick your battle. If this person is bad at communication, if you think you can tolerate that, then you go ahead and, decide to tolerate that for the rest of your life. It will suck, but then you decide that's your poison. And so the situation here is with us, we feel that pressure from the ladies when they start doing that. But at the same time, there's also the pressure of we've been dating for this long. Now, I'm thinking to myself, if I was dating someone that I met in university and I was 18, and fast forward 5 years, 6 years later, I mean, we started dating when we had nothing, right? I was working, you're not working, we're starting to build up, and it's now 5 years later. Do we still conform to the same timeline that most people would say, no, you can't date someone for over 4 years, it's ridiculous, you need to get married to them and the like. So the pressure is there for men, but it's usually on the side of the person that you're with. And I don't know, could be the reason why grandparents or even parents or whatever would say that you need to date someone who is significantly younger than you. So if I'm in university, then I need to start dating someone who is just completing high school, for instance. Or if I'm working and I'm done, then I date someone who's significantly younger, because now the time difference then matters. Though I'm not huge on the whole age thing, but
is it just a number?
Some of these things. For me, I think so.
Okay,
I think so. But the problem now starts when now you're dating someone who's a year younger than you, and they are equally facing that pressure from both family and also the whole biological clock situation. And now you're a year older, but you don't have your life quite figured out. What do you then do?
Okay. So now, one of the things that I love doing in my spare time, I think I even mentioned in the previous episode, I love being online. I love being on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you notice, even just Facebook and Instagram, is there are all these elaborate proposals. You know, you open like Facebook and there's candles, there's bouquets, there's flowers, there's cars, like, will you be my wife? And this is not just happening like in America, it's also happening in Zambia, where people are having these extravagant proposals and you're like, damn. But then in my head, the question I always ask is, do these people go back home before they start all these public proposals? Do they go home and actually sit down with their folks and say, listen, I think I'm ready to tie the knot? Because I always wonder, I'm like, in my family, if I was to get married today, or someone proposed to me today and the pictures hit the internet without my mother or my grandmother knowing, it's going to be World War III. So I'm like, do these people have parents, where they come from, and how is it that they are at liberty to do this? So I think the question now goes to Ms. Kapwepwe. How was it back in the day when somebody wanted to get married? What is it that you had to do, especially based on the novel? What is it that you had to do before you actually made it public to the entire world?
I think Naomi?
Yeah.
I think she said something very key, which is, she said, marriage is not between two people in our tradition. It's families coming together. And in fact, even the community is part of the marriage. It takes, we always say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to make a marriage work, because everybody has to watch it and support it and all that stuff. So in the olden days, you didn't kind of wake up and decide, I'm going to get married to this person. First of all, there was this whole concept of we're in love was not there. There was no such thing as we've fallen in love, so we're getting married. I think there was a little bit more of people, not you, but other people saying, you know, she's like this guy is like this. I think they'll make a good couple. Because I think sometimes in the throes of what we call love these days, that's when you have the least best judgment. You will just go for this person because no, so his hair is like this, therefore he'll make a good husband or whatever. When you are in love, and I always say love because the chemical I'm very much into people understanding their biology, because that's where it all starts from. Yes. And I don't know whether we've got time for this, but you know, when people say they're in love, or you know, if you're attracted to someone, what has really happened is that there's a chemical thing that starts happening, and you start both of you, if you're attracted to each other, you start creating what is called, you start your glands start creating what is, it's a neurochemical called phenylethylamine. That's the one that makes you crazy, the one that makes you miss this person, the one that if you see their name on your phone,
Bottle.
yeah.
I'm in a bottle. Yeah.
The body injects more of that phenylethylamine. Every time you see that, you can borrow money to go to Kitwe because he says come.
2 buses.
Yes, 3 buses. You go.
Yeah.
You've borrowed money from everybody. You don't even know how you're going to pay back, but he said come.
Yeah.
So you have to go. So your judgment is phenylethylamine is something that actually makes your judgment very impaired, because even when people are telling you, Naomi, do you think this is the guy for you? You don't know him. Yeah, that's phenylethylamine talking. So for us, traditionally, we try to avoid all that and try to look more at how people actually fit together, if you want. The second thing for us was that we didn't look for Mr. Right. The reason why we go for Mr. or Mrs. Right, the reason why we make all those teachings is because we think everybody can be a Mr. Right and Miss Right. Huh? Because we think everybody's lovable. Yeah. You can be a lovable person if you know what being lovable is. So the teachings would be about being kind, being considerate, having a sense of humor. How do you relate to another human being? That is what love is for us. Wow. How you relate to another human being. So those teachings were more about that, to make the people realize that, you know what, if I'm going to be in a relationship, this is what will make it work. Yeah. It's that compassion, it's a consideration, it's being able to give way when I have to, and to be able to lead when I have to. Those are the things that make a relationship work. Yeah. In our tradition also, relationship is the most important thing. That's what God created. When he created everything, the thing he put everything into is relationship. We all have a relationship with that plant because it produces oxygen. Yeah. So everything is in relationship. And human relationship is one of the most important things. That's why we teach. That's why we teach about it. So in this book, I'm trying to bring out all those things. And also the fact that something, he said, how do you know he hadn't come from hunting? Yes. Yeah. But modern day hunting is hustling.
Hustle.
Yeah.
Tamanga.
Yeah, tamanga. That is what modern day hustling is. Yeah. And if you're not a hustler, it's the same thing as if you're not a hunter. Huh? Yeah.
I've actually never seen it from that point of view. Yeah. Because I remember when I was younger, I asked my grandfather, I was like, Kuku, when you saw my grandmother in the village, was she the most beautiful woman you'd ever seen? I think I had such a romanticized notion of what it was. And my grandfather just goes, most beautiful woman. I went to the farm and I saw her digging and I said, that one can dig, that one will bring food on the table. Yeah. And I married her. And look at you now and look at us now. And by the way, they're celebrating 6 years in marriage in October. So I'm like, okay, maybe something works there. But then now what I want to find out is, one of the things that we're afraid of is the cultural trainings, especially as girls, that come forth with getting married. There's so much conversation about the training that we have to be, I don't say we have to do, but be subjected to. Because at the end of the day, it almost feels as though that we're being forced into those. So you as Gen Z, like, what have you heard about these cultural trainings and what are your personal thoughts about it?
Okay, so before we come to that, I want to comment on one thing that she said.
Yes, please.
It's so funny that I recently found out that before somebody proposes to you, they have to literally go to the family, your family, sit down and
You just found that out when? When Ms. Kapwepa was speaking?
No,
or just found out recently?
Recently. And for me, it was how marriage is branded, how engaging somebody is branded. It's it's just between two people. But it's there is no much information that's being passed out there to show us the person has to first talk to the family and then they have to come to agreement, and the family has an option to say no or yes. So
clutching my millennial pearls. Do you know how many times when I was your age, you have no idea how many times my aunties were getting married, and they would bring people to the house, and before the marriage proceedings start, all the uncles, the aunties, they're seated on chairs, and then they'll say, bring out like the mwalanjos, and then we all have to wear chitenges, maybe sometimes head wraps, and we all have to walk with, I've done that like maybe 5 times. You have to walk with your head bowed, you get in the sitting room, and then you sit and you cross your legs and you look down, and then there'll be someone who now asks the question. These days it's always my stepdad, I love him, bless his soul. He always asks the question, which flower have you seen? Point at the flower, but last time it was which cow? Which cow have you noticed that you want to get? And in my head, I'm so childish. I need to go moo. And then finally, that's when we would all sit as young girls, marriage age. And then the man has to point at the right person, and then the rest of you are excused. So that is the only role that we, as young girls, had in the marriage Lobola negotiation. So I'm amazed that you've not gone through that.
At least you got to see that. I have never gotten
Experience
to see that.
is a teacher.
Yeah.
I've been taught, and I'm like, I can't wait until it's finally me, the cow which gets home to, finally be that cow one day.
So going back to going back to what you had asked. So I think the thing is that there are different things that work for different families. So I'll give a situation of, you talked about if I'm aware of the
cultural trainings
and everything, because from what I know, I only know that it's done before you actually get married, like that period when you know that you've identified the person you want to get married to and stuff. So for me, it's the whole situation whereby nobody has taught you these things for the longest period of time. And then you have these different people that will put you in a room, and then they teach you these certain things that you have to know and adapt and learn before you actually get into marriage, And I feel the duration is just too short.
The duration of the teachings.
The teachings and learning, because I feel like if we can have a structure where, let's say our parents or aunties passively teach us these things. I'm speaking from experience. I've had situations where my friends tell me, oh no, I have a close auntie, she tells me this and that. But I feel from experience, if parents or aunties can be strategic and can be intentional. They can be intentional. And I'm talking about the majority. If they can be intentional in teaching us girls, about certain things before we actually get into marriage. So I feel that's way better than a situation of before marriage, you're planning your wedding and stuff, and then within a month, you've got people who sit you down and talk about
quick counseling.
I keep laughing because everything she's saying actually is kind of what I try to show in the book. Because 2 PhDs from the diaspora coming back. So the whole focus is the wedding, which for them is the white wedding. That's the wedding. But then when they get home, everything changes because, she comes from a very traditional family and he's an orphan, so he hasn't really, whatever. That creates a conflict. But the whole scene that you're describing about the flower is in the book. Because I want to show Naomi how it's done. But also, I think I also go into detail in terms of what we now call Lobola. What it actually was and what the gifts actually were and what they meant. Because I don't know, this whole concept of you've been bought or whatever it is so sad. Those gifts were about, one, it was just let's talk. Can we talk? We have seen the flower in the
flowers.
Yes. 2, it was about thanking the mother of the girl. Next gift. The second gift was now because for us, as you mentioned, it's about, so some gifts were for the nasenge, some gifts it was for the family. And then the final gift, which was the salt, was to say, because in the olden days, the man provided salt. It was his job to provide salt in the house. And so when that was presented, and it could have come whenever after all those other gifts, that gift meant, I am now ready to set up home with your daughter.
Wow.
That was the gift that asked for the date, if you want, of the marriage. and it's the girl's side that decided when the marriage would take place. So like all those were gifts. They were not to buy anybody or whatever. It was also about saying, we've now reached this stage, we've now reached this stage, we've now reached, oh, did they bring and everybody would know, oh, it meant that they have reached this stage. Yeah. So they were markers.
So
they were not purchases.
So as a woman, when you see salt,
because I don't know if this information will come to me, because the same thing that Naomi has mentioned is you then have a crash course in a couple of months, maybe even weeks, for you to learn all these things and jump into this institution of marriage. But the other thing is, funny you should mention that, because a couple of weeks ago I was speaking to a colleague and he recently married, and he said the funniest thing to me at the time, which stuck with me. And he said he went through the whole training thing with the Shibukombe and the lady who went to do the same thing. But this is someone he knew for a while. Then when they actually got married, he noticed a few changes. So it's almost as if she had leakage into marriage. And then he says that, my guy, Nikuza, like these girls, they get the full course. We are underprepared. Like we're coming into this thing blind. They know so much. And that's spoken to the few things. One, which Naomi is saying the time span could be shorter. And Mama Malenga is also speaking about how this was a gradual process in the olden days where you learn about these things as you move on. Now we're just taught, you just have to hunt. You just need to hustle and the like. So when he mentioned that, it served as a bit of a concern, because now, again, you've been with this person for the longest time, you know who they are and whatever. They go through that training. It could be short, but then in comparison to the men's training, from the experience that I've seen, it seems to be inadequate in a sense. And you understand why, because you have a very short time for you to learn all these things. I'll be completely honest. I'm 26, and there's so little I know about marriage. Yeah. There's so little I know about relationships. And what hurts me the most is, it could be true because of empirical evidence, but then men are portrayed a certain way in relationships that people know about. I mean, quick example, Naomi could be getting into a relationship and she'll probably say, for instance, men are dogs, right? And that's based on the stuff that she's heard around, right? But then I feel there's little training or little information around how to be a man in the context of relationships, in the context of marriage, especially at a young age. The most that we know about, especially if you're in Lusaka or maybe the Copper Belt, is you just need to make money. But little information around how to be a proper gentleman and a proper husband as young as you are and as you are getting into marriage. So it is a bit scary for me jumping into it. I'm jumping in blind. The only information I have is from watching movies, reading novels, but not so much as to what it really means to be that gentleman and husband.
So for me, this conversation is now interesting in that you're coming from a generation that feels you know too little. You come from a generation that knows a lot. And I come from a generation that was like, no, we don't want. So now, like, we are the ones who are in the forefront. No.
You are what we are now. You caused this.
But we're like that generation that I think fought so hard to ask the why question, to the point that we did not consider how it would affect the younger generation. So now they're like listening to you amazed, but I'm like, I have heard this before, but maybe I haven't heard it in that context. So at the end of the day, like, there is a gap somewhere where you feel you don't know enough and you are the custodians, and then there's us who are like, no. So before we get deeper into this, I want us to check out some of the conversations that happen on the streets and some of the things that people had to say. So let's all check out these Vox Pops and we'll be right back.
I believe that cultural norms and values are there to preserve our communities. However, with the modern influence challenging and reshaping traditional values, it is very important for women to get back to the Nsaka and remind the young people why these traditions existed in the first place. An example would be an important value in the Zambian tradition, which is respect for elders. The question begs, how then do you maintain this value when modern society advocates for first name basis with your elders? Imagine addressing someone who's 50 years old as John and instead of Sir or Mr. This is why we need the older women to educate young people, starting from the homes we are coming from, before our values are diluted.
Welcome back to the Count Me In podcast. I have had such an amazing time with this conversation. I wish I could just get everybody, we all just go for a coffee and keep talking about it. So as we wrap it up, I think I just want everyone to say a few words, and I'm going to start with Tapiwa since last time you complained. So men first.
Thank you. I think I'm really glad I came here. It's been very insightful. And two key takeaways is, one, the information that we were not privy to. There's a lot that I feel we don't know about. And to that degree, I feel Naomi and I sitting on this sofa is testament that the world or our culture is trying to correct itself. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't ignore that. I've got an insight from your end, which is your generation and why they pushed back on some of these things. And ultimately, I feel what ties us all together is the communication part of it. So I'm really glad that there's treasures that we don't know about that we can use, because without those, I feel relationships going forward in anything that we do, we're pretty much going to be lost and be asking the questions. Mm-hmm. But once we lose that information, if we don't let it correct itself, we'll just remain with whys. Why is this happening? Why is my marriage not working? Mm-hmm. Why can't I do this? And there'll be no one to say, oh, this is the answer to that. So we shouldn't ignore this correction. Okay. Yeah.
Naomi.
Wow, this has really been insightful. I like the fact that we have like representation from like different people, the people who said yes, the people who said no, and us who really don't know. And before coming here, I had a whole idea of how marriage is and supposed to be. But having this conversation has really just told me like there's so many things that I don't know. Mm-hmm. And most of the things that I know is either blamed from TV or people around people around me, you know. Yeah. Mm. So I feel like there's need for young people like me to listen more, but there's also need from people. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I'll emphasize on you, like the millennials.
Millennial, darling.
Yeah, to make an effort to pass down this information, because I feel we also have to have an opportunity to say yes or no, you know, because we can't say yes or no to something that we don't know, you know. So I feel like that's one thing that we really have to look into, and that has been my takeaway. But I really need to read the book. Yeah.
Excellent. Miss Kay.
Okay, this has really been, for me, like really amazing, because there's so many things that I try and explain in the book that they brought up, right down to the Fisashi, that they brought up, because there's so much part of our culture which is at so many crossroads, on so many levels, that is confusing for them, it's confusing for us, it's confusing for you. And the more conversations we have around our own culture, the better. You know, it for me, it doesn't even matter if you don't take everything. Mm-hmm. But even if somebody asks you when you're out of this country, like, what do you do in your own culture around? At least be able to explain. Don't go and say, we have white weddings, and that's not your culture. Yeah. But just be able even to talk about your own culture, for me, is enough. Even if you say, no, but I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But keep your culture, be proud of it. Be able to talk about it. Believe me, sophistication is being able to talk about your culture. Yeah. It's not about, oh no, but we don't do. No, it's about, I've been to cultures that are so proud. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter whether it's negative or whatever, they are proud of it. So for me, this has been a really, really good conversation. I hope that people will actually buy the book, because I think for me it was about getting this conversation going and seeing this conversation happening now. And please, the two of you, I'm going to give you my number so that we can continue the conversation. Yes. Because I think even when you read the book, you will still want to have the conversation. True. And mine is to have the conversation. True. So thank you. This was really nice.
Marriage is more than the pretty outfit that you choose to wear. we are deeper than the African print that we wear. You cannot be going to Chilangamlilo's kitchen parties celebrating the cultural look when you do not understand the culture behind it. At the end of the day, we have to realize that it's much deeper than we think. What we might not be comfortable with can only be known if we have open, transparent, and insightful conversations with the older generation so that we can give the right information to the younger generation. At the end of the day, it is up to you to decide what aspects of culture work best for you once you understand the context behind it. Before we dismiss certain things, we need to get ourselves that education so that we can make informed decisions that are going to benefit ourselves, our societies, and ensure that we give the best knowledge to the younger generation coming forward. So at the end of the day, the choice is yours so that we can all work together. We learn from the past generations so that we become the new custodians of the culture, and so that when these young children and younger people are ready to get married, we can proudly stand up with confidence and say, count me in. Until the next time, this has been your girl, Stu Relatable, that internet auntie. If you need me, you know where to find me. Thank you for this, and I can't wait to have the next conversation. So from me and my fellow panelists, it's goodbye, and I will see you next time.